we're going to start very briefly just saying, why are we doing this, about the plan and the geometry of transit, an overview of the project, and then we'll dive in with discussion about Metro Rapid, and then kind of the big decision points in the project where we're going to be focusing a lot of attention, maybe even in the news over the next few months. Plans about SoCo Station, the Blue Line Bridge, Crestview Station, East Riverside of Pleasant Valley, and the drag. Again, these are areas where we could choose different options about how to proceed, and we've really been hearing a lot from the community and continuing to have discussions there. Then we can open for questions and next steps. So first, none of this is a surprise, I'm sure, hopefully at this point, but the region is growing and we're doubling in size, and by 2040, there'll be twice as many of us. Unfortunately, the roads will not be twice as wide in 2040. So we need to figure out how to move more people through the same amount of space. This shows the number of people, so 72 people, who are on the road, added to the road each day, because 150 people move here, and we've got about 70 more cars on the road every day. And this is what 70 people look like on a bus. And this is what 70 people look like on bikes. And this is not what 70 people look like in cars. This is what about 48 people look like in cars. We take another block or so to fit all of those people on the road. So what we're trying to do is encourage people to choose a bus or choose a bike or choose a train ride or a pickup ride or to walk when they can. It's not an all or nothing thing, but if you're commuting to and from the office 5 days a week and 1 day a week is your transit day, that's a 20% reduction in your contribution to the traffic. Or if you're thinking, that's cool, Lonny, but I don't have a bus, I don't have a train, I'm not gonna ride my bike to work, even just carpooling is a reduction. If you carpool once a week, that is a 10% reduction in your contribution to the traffic. And certainly van pooling is another option as well. So we look to partners like Movability to help people choose those choices. But at the same time, we still need to offer these opportunities so that way you have those choices. And Project Connect is a piece of that. Now, the premise of Project Connect is that dedicating right-of-way can help us move more people in the same amount of space. And even more than just having a bus in mixed traffic. You can see on this animation that on the left, we can move way fewer people, practically 3 times fewer people by having mixed traffic bus service versus dedicated transit way. And so we are hoping to bring dedicated transit ways to more parts of town so that far more people can make it through our streets. Now, in order to do that, we worked on a plan called Project Connect, and I'll give you just a little bit of an overview of the players and the timeline and what that plan is like, and then we'll take a deeper dive into the services themselves. So first, this builds off of the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, also known as the ASMP. And the city approved this. I'm basically noticing that right now, 3 out of 4 people drive to work alone. And that was in 2019. So I suspect that a few things have changed since the time that this survey was done. And we are trying to increase all of the alternative modes like transit or teleworking or walking or biking or even taking a scooter, taxi, or carpooling. And we are trying to make that a 50-50 mode split so that half of people may still need to drive, but half of the people might be able to take some other mode to get to where they need to go. And to do that, part of it includes an investment in expanding and improving our transit system. Voters in November of 2020 approved the initial investment for Project Connect. And the initial investment are solid lines on this map versus dotted lines as part of the future extension. So you can see things like, we want to offer Metro Rapid service on Palmer, but that's not part of this initial investment. Versus we do plan to provide the new Expo Center line Metro Rapid during this initial investment, in addition to Blue Line and the Orange Line. And even still, you can see there are future extensions of the Orange Line, and we'll go through that in more detail shortly. In addition to what is getting a lot of the attention, which is rail lines, the light rail lines in particular. There's also the Green Line, which is a new commuter service that we plan to offer, much like the Red Line is today. It's a freight line that could be running people on it as well. We also plan to make improvements to our Metro Express service. We plan to add additional park and rides and transit centers. We are greatly expanding our pickup neighborhood circulator service. And again, I can go into more detail, especially in Q&A. We need to build a new maintenance facility for the light rail system to operate. And in addition to that, we'll be making improvements to things like our fare box, and also investing about $300 million in anti-displacement investments along the light rail corridors. This is just an example of what light rail could look like on a street. I think the real takeaway here, not only is this an imaginary street, so it's not going to exactly look like this, but the main premise here is that there's room for every mode on our streets. We should be able to walk or bike. We should be able to drive cars, come in a wheelchair or on our feet, get on a train or a bus, still make left-hand turns, still have a tree and furniture zone, so that way it's more comfortable to be out on the street. And we'll be working with the community on some of the choices that are involved with that, like should we have a split station or a side-by-side station based on how much space it takes in the street? What do the plantings look like? How is art and the unique character of that neighborhood captured in the canopy? Is this canopy adequate for light, for rain, for information, for electrical charging, for buying a ticket? And even, you think, oh yes, we need trees, we need shade, but it depends on what corridor you're in and what that tree might block. For example, on South Congress, you might have a really expensive sign on top of your business and feel differently than perhaps the general public about where trees are placed. So a lot of the work we're doing is currently talking about the track and the station, but in the coming year, in 2023, we'll be talking a lot more about what the street life generally looks like and what the look and feel is of the system. So right now, we're talking about track and stations, and in the future, we'll be talking more about the actual built environment that goes with it. Because this isn't just 30 miles of light rail line that's being built. This is 30 miles of public space that is being built in our city. So a quick overview of the rail system. Again, here's our rail system today. That's the red line. It goes further north, but for the purposes of this slide, I just kind of cut it into the central city portion. And the red line today is a commuter rail line, a regional rail line that uses our existing freight line and runs additional service. Over time, we will be increasing the frequency to 15-minute frequency versus 30-minute peak frequency. And we will also be increasing the service hours. So that way we get later night service and weekend service that we don't have at the moment. That's the reason we've been double tracking in portions, just to expand that service. In addition, the green line will use that existing freight line, and then right around Plaza Saltillo, it's going to diverge and head further east, serving Pleasant Valley, the Arts District at Springdale, a park and ride at 183, and then up into Colony Park. And you can see future extension out to Manor and Elgin. Because the freight line goes there, but Manor and Elgin didn't participate in the election. Then there's the blue line from the airport down Riverside to downtown. And then you can see this blue line, it kind of follows along here. That's called, the industry term is interlining. And for the rest of us, sharing works, the line with the orange line. So that way, if you're, let's say at 183 or, and North Lamar or Crestview, you could choose to get on the blue line there and take it with a one-seat ride all the way out to the airport. In addition to that, there's the orange line, which in the initial investment will run from 183 down to Stastny. Future extensions would take it to Slaughter and up to Tech Ridge. And this is kind of the main trunk line now. For those who are 801 Metro Rapid riders, it's that same line. In addition to that, we have our Metro Rapid service. Metro Rapid are those kind of better bus service where you can enter any door. They tend to have Wi-Fi. The buses are usually larger, and the stations have more real-time arrival info. we're going to be transitioning to electric buses. And so you're going to start seeing these midline chargers in some places around the city. In addition to the Metro Rapids we have today, which are the 801, which basically runs the orange line, there's the 803, and we're planning to make some improvements there. We'll talk about that in a sec. But then these dotted lines, you see here, the crosstown, that's future plan, but currently that's Route 4. So we're running 15-minute service. It just doesn't have the rapid treatment yet. And then you can see over here, the MLK line, that's future service. Again, we have 15-minute service there, but that's Route 18 today. And then this will be a new service, again, in the future, connecting Tech Ridge to Highland and Parma, as we talked about. But the ones that are happening now, the Expo Center line starts at, you guessed it, the Expo Center with a new park and ride. It'll go down Loyola up to LBJ High, and we'll very likely have a new park and ride arrangement with AISD at the Delco Center. So for those of you who drive down 183, this could be another opportunity to get on the system. It'll continue down Manor Road like the 20 does today, but when it gets to 51st Street, unlike the 20 that goes around Mueller, this will turn and go through Mueller and then continue on down Manor Road. And then unlike today where the 20 goes all the way across town and uses the transit mall and the drag, this will use Trinity Sanjack side. So it'll have a faster connection to rail. In addition, there is the Pleasant Valley line starting at Goodnight Ranch, where a park and ride is being planned, to McKinney Falls. We're still working on a location at Easton Park for a park and ride. And then it'll head up to Pleasant Valley, where it will eventually connect to the Blue Line, and then go across the river where it will connect to the Green Line, and then continue up by ACC Eastview, then up Airport Boulevard, and finally head into Mueller, ending at Barbara Jordan Boulevard by the HEB there. So this is new connection from Southeast Austin to Central East Austin, avoiding that trip into downtown, but also providing that faster trip. So if you still need to get to downtown, you can hop on the Blue Line or the Green Line to do that. So we're very excited about this. Both of these lines have already broken ground and should be operational next year. In addition, we've got a few changes coming for the 803. I'll start on the south side. Currently, the 803 terminates at Westgate Transit Center. Our plan is to continue that service south on Menchaca down to Slaughter. And at this location, currently, there is a pickup service in this area as a collection node to make it easier to connect to that service, and also the businesses in that area. In addition, we're planning a leg that'll head out to the Y at Oak Hill, but because of the Oak Hill Expressway construction going on, this will probably be more delayed. So this is likely going to be a 2024, maybe late 2023, whereas this one might go on a couple of years longer as we wait out that construction. Further up the line, I just wanted to point out this right here is under consideration. So while we've added new stops on the north part of Burnett Road, and that's already in place, you can already get directly to the stadium or directly to Breaker Road. When you come down to the triangle, you currently take the 803 down the transit mall, and then it goes out back to the library and down South Lamar. We're considering, when the orange and blue line are running here, that we may bring the 803 onto Lamar. So that way you'll have direct service to points on Lamar Boulevard, including Peace Park and the Market District downtown. Again, we're still considering that, and before anything is planned, you'll hear about a public meeting to discuss that further. So next, just wanted to make sure people know that Project Connect is a program of projects that is being delivered across a three-party team. When we hosted the election, it was a City of Austin election because they have property taxing authority. And the election was not a bond election. It was for a permanent property tax. This provides flexibility for the project. So it's not one-time funds, it's ongoing funding into the future. And the city not only had that capacity, it's also overseeing right-of-way and permitting and coordination with utilities, and is overseeing the anti-displacement investments. We also work with Cap Metro, who operates our transit system. And so they weigh in on things like service changes, or where might the buses go if this service is put in place, or how might you adjust in the future, or which services would go to this park and ride, or is this station in the right location? So we do work with Cap Metro quite often on planning this project. And then the Austin Transit Partnership is the agency that was created through the election. It's a limited government corporation. The money that is raised through the election goes to the transit partnership to build out the projects. And once these projects are built, they become Cap Metros to operate. And so again, it takes all three parties, plus at times TxDOT, the Federal Transit Administration, Campo. There's so many players involved. But again, Project Connect is being delivered primarily across this three-party. We have an overall timeline. I think the main things to take away are the light rail projects are going to take about a decade. We're in 2022, so we're about here on this schedule. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that means. But you can see there that we're just at this final design and procurement. And it'll be about 2024 before we start construction on the line. And we could do this faster, but we'd have to have more streets under construction at the same time. And so we're planning to phase that construction. You can see red line is a continuum. We should be finished with all the red line improvements by 2023, and that's when new service plans may be in place. For Metro Rapid, we're looking at 2023 and 2024 launch dates, and then a continuum for the remainder of those investments. But specifically, where are we right now with planning the light rail lines? We're working with the Federal Transit Administration on considering our project. And last year, we were working on our 15% designs. Right now, we're working on 30% designs and are hoping to get approval of our draft environmental impact statement. We'll be presenting that to the public and to the FTA this summer, very likely in August and September. And then we hope to hear back from the federal government this winter with a record of decision. If that happens, we'll know if they would like us to move forward on planning and designing this project, and also if they will be making an investment to the size that we are planning that they will. So big year coming up ahead. One thing that I'd like to talk about is the discussion in the news about costs. And it's true, you've heard that costs have gone up, and that's because original cost estimates were done in 2018 and 19. And while all of us are experiencing real estate price increases, so is this project. While all of us are seeing inflation and labor growth and cost of goods going up, so is this project. But in addition to that, the program scope is changing. So as we host public meetings and people make requests, we try to incorporate that in the plan. And when you do that, things like the tunnel length, going from 1.5 miles to 4 miles, is a real significant driver of costs. So in the coming summer, we're going to be talking about this more specifically. Are there choices that we can make to reduce the cost of the project? It could be that we decide that some things are nice to have versus need to have. It could be that we decide to adjust the timeline, because again, we have money that's coming in through that election, and we will continue getting it over time. So it's possible that some projects could be phased earlier versus later to help with that cash shortfall. But the main takeaway is that the tax rates that we set in that election will not increase. We are not going to return to voters until the project is completed for the initial investment. So please rest assured of that. And we will be discussing in more detail, and we can even talk about that in the Q&A about how the project might change. So now just to go into a quick overview about Metro Rapid and then into each of these target areas. Again, Metro Rapid is a 10-minute service at peak. We're moving to a zero emissions fleet, and we're also updating what these stations look like. We'll have a larger as well as a smaller size station, because some of these will be in people's front yards versus unmade corridors. And in addition, We've gotten feedback about additional sun screening, better coverage. So instead of that slanted roof, flat roofs, that way, rain and sun are better protected, or you're better protected from sun and rain. A real-time arrival information will stay, but we're also incorporating Metro Bike into the design of these stations. In addition, to the Expo line, this gives a little bit more detail about where those stops are. We've got a few others that are planned for this project. And again, I can make these slides available if you need to take a deeper dive on any of these. So we talked about Expo Center, and we talked about Pleasant Valley as well, and just making sure that we hit on these primary destinations, including Mueller and the Springdale Shopping Center, ACC Eastview, Roy G. Guerrero Park, in the general Pleasant Valley area, and then taking it down to Dove Springs, and then eventually to Onion Creek, Easton Park, and Goodnight Ranch. We had our groundbreaking, and so again, we're planning service in mid-2023. And then there's the Gold Line. I know some people expressed interest in that. The Gold Line is being studied as a Metro Rapid, but in the future, it may become a light rail line. So we're working with the feds to take a look at that too. Currently, we're planning it to run from Republic Square over to the Convention Center, and then use the San Jac Trinity side of downtown to head through the university. This is on San Jacinto, comes up Dean Keaton, and then turns up Red River to the Hancock Center. When it gets to 45th Street, it'll move over to Airport Boulevard and then head up to Highland. Now you can see there's a dotted line here. We originally were thinking about putting a park and ride at Highland, but finding a spot for that park and ride has become more difficult than we thought. And so we're actually considering extending it so it goes up to Crestview Station and then North Lamar Transit Center, where we currently own that property and can develop it as a park and ride and with parking facilities for Metro Rapid. So this seems to be gaining traction and is very likely to begin. Now, I just did want to point out that this is the Metro Rapid line. Should we move to a light rail line, this routing might change slightly. I mean, there are real considerations about being on San Jac and UT because this is a floodplain, and we may have to slide it, up towards the stadium rather than further west of it. Same when we get to Hancock Center. We are making this very tight turn to get over to Airport Boulevard, but future discussions might consider continuing north on Red River. Again, that is not in the current plan. We are simply talking about Metro Rapid. In the future, in addition to going to Republic Square, it may actually head south and interline in the same way the blue line interlines with the orange line north. This one might interline or share the tracks with the orange line heading south. But again, that isn't planned until this is upgraded to light rail. And that is not part of the initial investment. And then in addition, I showed this with Menchaca and Oak Hill. This gives you a better sense of where these stations are being planned on the Menchaca extension. So you can see Jones, it's a major destination, ACC South, Burkett, Cherry Creek, Gaines Mill, Ditmar, and Tanglewood. And then this circle kind of indicates where that pickup zone is currently. In addition, you can see heading out Brody, Monterey Oaks, Old Fredericksburg, Forest Oaks, Oak Hill, and Pinnacle. And there's also a pickup that is operating in this area presently so that those at NXP or AMD or ARM can also get a connection with pickup service to this area. So next, we're going to move into some deep dives on these stations and then open to questions. Again, if you have any specific questions, you are welcome to use the Q&A feature for Kate to moderate, or the chat feature if you've got some additional clarifying questions, because I know we just went through a lot. But now I'm going to take a deep dive, and here are the big areas where there's going to be a lot of attention. And the SoCo station is one of them, because again, the tunnel is very much a part of this discussion. So during the initial investment discussion, we thought before the election that we would build a bridge over Lady Bird Lake, and that the orange line would be in a tunnel and have a station at Republic Square, and then come out of the tunnel in a portal, which just means like, kind of a hole in the ground that the train comes out of. and that it would then go over this bridge and be at the surface by the time it got to Auditorium Shores. But there were a variety of reasons detailed here why this is not possible. The main one being the utility realignment and water wastewater that was over there would make it very, very costly. And also there's potential flood risk in that area. So instead, it was decided that we should stay under the river. So not through it, we're not worried about any of that, just completely under it. And again, this is the Lincoln Tunnel was built in the early 1900s. We have the technology. So when you do that, you have both the short and the long tunnel option. So that meant that Auditorium Shores was an underground station. And when you turn the corner, you might think of Congress as being flat, but it is not flat. It is a hill. And so you are trying to go up the hill and find a flat space to have a station. Because if you arrive with a wheelchair, it's a problem to get on a train if it's on too much of a slope. Also, the train itself, it's subject to gravity and it might roll. So you want to have a flat spot for stopping the train. In addition to that, there's a creek that runs through here that's not shown on this map. That's Bolden Creek. So you can't just pop up anytime you want. You need to get past that creek before you get into that climbing stage. So because of that, we thought this would be underground until we got to basically just past where Music Lane is and come out in the portal, and then be on the surface on South Congress, but still going up a hill until we got to Lively Middle School. That's where we could put the station in a flat enough surface, and then continue on surface down to Old Torf. And this is what that street looked like. We then presented the option of a long tunnel so that we stay underground longer, and we put the platform basically where the Metro Rapid is today. But that extends this tunnel at least this long, and then you still have to come out of the ground. So you put the portal right around Live Oak, so kind of near where the old theater is at Live Oak, where that big art tile installation is, and that we would continue on the surface. And you can see what that looks like and how this impacts the street design, where if you're on the street here, there's less room for bike and ped and tree zone, versus if you're in the tunnel, you get a much more generous public space than you would if we were in the middle of the street. Even in designing that though, we had come across the Capitol View corridor, and the interpretation from our attorneys is a little bit more strict than we were originally thinking. So, we were thinking Capitol View corridor, two-dimensional, these are the lines, to stay out of the way of the lines. But actually, they are three-dimensional corridors. And so while there are parts of South Congress where you can build, there are parts where the Capitol View corridor actually goes underground. And so that became an issue for us as we were thinking about where the portal would be. And we had to push the portal past this section so that we didn't break the Capitol View corridor on that hill. And because of that, instead of having the portal basically here, we're sliding the portal even further south, which also added some additional cost. And so you can kind of compare what we planned originally to the short tunnel versus the long tunnel versus the really long tunnel option. And because of that, there were significant costs increases here. So there's going to be a really robust conversation about whether we shouldn't be doing this, and if it's possible to adjust the view corridor to do this, or at the very least, do this long tunnel versus the extended tunnel. So that's a big controversy there. Just to know what we're planning at the moment, it is a tunnel, and the super long tunnel. And so we plan some station entries in front of Trudy's Del Mar, as well as a primary entrance, kind of where Hey Cupcake used to be. There's still like some crew sunglasses and a food trucker there right across from Stag. And then a secondary station in front of Home Slice, just so that way you don't always have to go to the primary, but you can leave at the end of the platforms underground. And this is a kind of a side view of what the street might look like And these are examples of bikeways that are separated from the sidewalk. All right, so that's SoCo. I'm going to move on to the Blue Line Bridge. So the Blue Line Bridge is going to allow the Blue Line to connect from the South Shore to the North Shore and into downtown. So that way those coming from the airport can get over to the Convention Center and then to Republic Square and points north. It also provides opportunities for people to get to the Emma Barrientos Mexican American Culture Center, also to Rainey Street District, and the wider destinations and housing along Waterloo Greenway. So currently there's a plan for a bridge with a portal, and I'll show you more images of that, and a station entrance that brings it south of Cesar Chavez to provide better connections for these potential passengers. Now, first controversy is there's a boathouse there. We're gonna kind of go, that's where that portal is gonna be. So PARD is working on a new location for Waller Creek Boathouse, and they pretty much settled on the old site of the Austin Hostel. And that would bring it to the South Shore on the east side. Next, there's a discussion about whether this bridge should be for train only, or if we should also have bus service on this bridge. In both options, we have bike and ped and rail. You can see them side by side, but this one also adds a bus, and that adds some design challenges and costs. And so this is kind of a rendering. Again, these are not final designs, just images to help you understand what is being planned. So this shows just the rail bridge. There it is with the bus bridge. So option A, option B. Now we get to feel like we're at the eye doctor. All right, so we continue forward. Here's an example of what it would look like as a pedestrian heading towards downtown with the train. And there it is with the bus bridge. So both options there. And then I'm just showing what it looks like, you know, as a rendering as you're heading into the North Shore. So you can see pedestrian bridge and the rail bridge. This adds the bus bridge, and you notice the bus bridge right when it gets to the shore crosses over the rail bridge. So while the rail is going underground, the bus bridge is realigning itself to Trinity Street so we can get to the surface. So again, A, B. And again, this is what it would look like if you were on the trail. Here it is with train only, and then train with bus. So we add this pedestrian connection underneath the bus bridge, but over the rail bridge in that option, versus here, you're going up and around, more similar to the way that you do today, up and around. Okay, and then this is looking south from Trinity. If you're by the Four Seasons, here it is with train only. Here's it is with train and bus, and you can see that train station right there. And I'm gonna slide over that real quickly. Then Crestview Station is also another big knot that we're trying to work on. And for Crestview Station, there's a lot of things going on. So in that meeting, we basically did a briefing, and I'm gonna give you the Cliffs Notes for that. So first, Crestview Station serves not just Crestview, but Wooten, Brentwood, Highland. It's a big connector feeder, and there's a lot of service in this area. This is more of a street view. You can see today there's several buses as well as the train connection, plus buses running this way, buses running this way, and a lot of destinations, including a new development that will be built here and shopping that currently exists. This, for those who are transit riders, the pink lines are coming every 15 minutes. You can see the 300, the 7, the 801 are all hubbing here at Crestview. And in the future, the 350 may be updated to a 15-minute service too. And again, you're just a hop, skip, and a jump from the 337 and all of these green lines that are also providing service in the area. On top of it, the gold line might be coming through here too. So Crestview is a very significant spot, probably more transit connectivity in that spot than in any other place other than downtown. And we've already talked about the potential of extending the gold line, so I'll skip here. And we'll focus on this plan. So again, there's a lot going on, and that's what I'm going to cover real quickly. So first, There's the corridor office, which is trying to make improvements in this area to make it safer. This area, these blue dots are showing all the vehicular, and then the green ones are pedestrian crashes in this area. And for those who head to Black Star Co-op or the Crestview Station, you may know there's a bench over here that it doesn't matter how many times it gets fixed, it seems to get knocked down again. So there's a lot of crash activity in this area. And so they are working to improve the street to help with that by raising the profile of the crossings in this area and completing the off-street pedestrian connection as well. So that way people are less likely to be in this box should a car come barreling through. In addition, there's the Red Line Parkway. That is a bicycle way that runs along the Red Line and is intended to continue going all the way out to Leander. At Airport Boulevard, it basically ends at Lamar. And we're talking about extending it with the railway, or in the short term, connecting it to Justin Lane, either at Lamar, which personally I think is less comfortable, or up into the train station and then crossing on a bridge to connect to Justin Lane, since Justin Lane itself is a big bike boulevard. In addition to this, that Austin Energy site that you see, right here, is planned to be a TOD development. And they are planning to have interaction with the station. So we're trying to coordinate with them in case this station platform moves, or in case we want to bring the bikeway through, or in fact, they also own this property here. So to coordinate that with our actual track along Lamar. So again, here's that red line, and it interlines here with with Crestview Station. And so this is the part that we're talking about here. And you've got the red line crossing the orange line, and that's a no-no. That is a no-no, just generally. You don't want them to cross directly. So the default option is for the orange line to go up and over the red line, and the red line to stay where it is. And if that happens, that's what this could look like. Here's Midtown Commons. We're looking west, and there's an elevated rail line interacting in that area. Here's Justin Lane, and this is where the red line is, and then Lamar Boulevard is right next to it. And so if that happens, we've got the platform here on the west side of that intersection. The train kind of goes up in the air with a retained wall, and then the platform is here with elevators and stairs, which you can see more closely here. And I do see a question in the chat. No, there will not be a park and ride capacity at Crestview. The park and ride will be at North Lamar Transit Center, and so people can connect there to the orange or the blue line. For those who are coming here through the red line, it'll be a simple transfer to the blue or the orange line. But again, here we are with that elevated option. And that's what this could look like. If you're on North Lamar looking north, you might see this platform. Here's Midtown Commons, the train, and then Lamar Boulevard. So that's option one. And again, one more view. Here's the red line elevated station and how the street would interact with this area. Now, we're currently considering what would happen if we put the red line below grade. So it would be in a trench. And that is not part of Project Connect, but there is a team working with Campo to see if money would be available for that. So if they built a trench, it would run just west of Guadalupe to just east of Morrow Street. So it wouldn't block those streets, but that would change what's happening at Lamar. And so if that were to happen, here's that red line underground. Here's Lamar heading north and south. And we'd be able to put the station directly under the street. So the street itself would be the cover for the station rather than having the stop where it currently is right here. That would adjust it. And if that happens, we would very likely have a pedestrian bridge connection between Midtown Commons and the new Crestview Village. But that changes several things. So first, again, we can't do this. This would move the red line under the orange line. And if so, then the orange line would stay on the street. It would shift slightly to the east and have a center platform on Lamar. And that would adjust a little bit what these slip lanes look like, just so to make some safety improvements and make this a wider space. But again, the red line train platform would be underground. You'd come up to the level and then cross over to get to the orange line. Here's a closer look at that. And this is what the street view would look like. You'd have the orange line in the center of the street with service running north and south on the side with a tree zone. One more view. You can see red lines below grade. There's no bridge anymore in front of Midtown Commons. It's on the street, kind of like that. And this is that last view, so you can see what that trench might look like and the pedestrian crossings there. Again, this is not finally designed. This is just where we're at the moment. So that's option A, option B. All right. So again, there's a cost associated with this. If we do this trench, that's $175 to $225 million more. And again, we are seeking this funding from outside sources. If this funding comes through, then we will pursue a version like this. If not, we will continue with the default option, which is elevated orange. All right, let's see. The last one to cover, actually there are two more, is East Riverside and then the drag. East Riverside Station is here on the blue line at Pleasant Valley and Riverside. We originally had a meeting about building a bridge over the train so that Pleasant Valley traffic went over it. This has pros and cons because again, Pleasant Valley is a hill. So even though the train is here, the bus stops would have to be located over here. So you have to cross basically highways to get to the bus stops. You can see better, here's that stop, here's that hill. And even though you're going back and forth, you can't get on the bus here, you gotta go over here. So that was option one. Option two had a roundabout that went around Pleasant Valley. So if you're heading north and south, you had to turn. And that made it so that the bus bays were right here next to the train. But if you're a pedestrian, you suddenly have to walk across like 10 lanes and some tracks to get across. And that was not preferred by the public either. So again, we decided to take it back to everybody and come up with a new option based on that feedback. And in so doing, we determined it makes more sense to relocate the eastbound travel lanes a little further north. And that way they come off the hill, they come down, and we'll probably have to do some grading of this hill. But that way we can get the traffic surface on a flat structure instead of having this large hill to contend with. And when we do that, we'll have to regrade Pleasant Valley heading to this intersection because the hill won't be so high anymore, it'll be a little bit lower. And the benefit of doing that is it allows us to hit the best of both worlds on the original proposal. We can keep the train at grade, we don't have to build a bridge, but we have room for kiss and ride. And because it's flat, we can put the bus bays right here on Pleasant Valley. And this gave us additional space to work with to design a public space in this area. So again, you'd have a bus pullout and Pleasant Valley Road going north-south, bus and rail connection in the same place. And I'm gonna skip this just for time. But again, the original underpass was a $50 million increase. The least costly option is the roundabout, but there's safety issues. And so this hybrid option is 20 million above the base plan, but is less than our most expensive option was in that earlier round. I think I'm just gonna hit it again for those who weren't here earlier. Again, the 2020 election included a property tax rate for this project. That will not be increasing. There will be no additional tax rate request for this project. We will either make tough decisions about the project itself, or we will adjust the timeline for pieces of the project so that we stay within the funding that's available. So moving on, just to give you just some sexy rendering highlights here. Again, this is Pleasant Valley. So we're looking at Pleasant Valley and Riverside, and this would be the station area. And we designed it to coordinate with Country Club Creek, which will become more of a linear park destination. And then we also have to handle the significant water runoff that comes in this area and then make it feel like a place. And so this is some of the ideas we have for rain gardens and platform access in this area. Also a signature gateway so that you know you've arrived and have some cover in this area. And this is kind of an overview, a bird's eye view looking east with the station, the bus platforms, the water ecological area, and the train service with the newly graded Pleasant Valley. So this is our operating plan for now and what we're planning to present to the federal government this fall. It's one more rendering because I love renderings. And again, we'll be working with the community to actually design this. This is just a concept at this point. And then finally, I'm bringing up the drag because the drag workshop is coming up on the 14th. And I certainly would encourage you to get involved because it's complicated. Again, the drag is right here at UT West Mall. Blue line and orange line will be serving this area. And the two stations impacted would be 24th Street and Hemp Hill Park, which is 29th Street. From earlier in the 15% design round, just so we have a sense of place, there's a platform near UT West Mall, and then it goes around the corner for another platform at Hemp Hill Park Station. Now, we're very constrained on right-of-way in this area, so there's some tough choices to be made. And it actually gets tighter and tighter. You know, you start wide at 120 feet, and then by the time you get over to, Torchies in this area, you're at 60 feet. So given that each lane, road lane is like 11 feet, it's not very much to work with when you also want to get a train in there and a platform for people to use the station. For those who are more block visual oriented, you can see how tight the right-of-way gets. So there are some tough choices already going on and some road realignment. And so we're imagining a transit mall in this area that varies from, train only to bikes and buses, as well as train and bus only. We've really been open to community feedback on what is going to be best fit the vision for this area. And so what we presented before were two options. One where there was a train in the middle, and then there was a bus lane that allowed cars, as well as another option where it was trains only, no cars, no buses, but you have bikeway. And I believe that in this next meeting, just like Pleasant Valley, we're going to be taking community feedback to marry these two plans into a new option. So we really need feedback about what is potentially coming to the area. Now, there were some trade-offs. When you add the cars and the buses, you lose tree zone because you've got only limited right-of-way. In addition, if you choose cars and buses, you also have a combined bike and pedestrian environment versus separated facilities. And so they were presented as a choice last time, and we'll see how it turns out in this next go around. So I'd encourage you to participate in some upcoming meetings, and certainly we can revisit this slide in a moment. But again, the drag workshop is on Tuesday the 14th. We just hosted one last night on the combined maintenance facility, and we'll be doing an overall subway overview and station discussion on the 22nd at 5:30. And would encourage you to participate either at one of these meetings. You can join a working group by signing up at the Project Connect website, and you can always email us at feedback@catmetro.org if you want to give feedback that isn't in a meeting and you don't have to speak in public. The easiest way to do that is either you can get involved and you can sign up for these meetings. You can also click on the public engagement library and see every single meeting we have hosted since the election and even before that. And if you click on one of them, you'll see it's not just the slide deck, but it's also the video from that meeting. And then finally, you can always contact us if you would like a briefing for your organization, your office, your church, your community group, or not a presentation. You just want us to show up and have a drop-in with some popsicles or cold water or coffee. You can always contact us up at the top and request a virtual meeting or subscribe to the newsletter. Whew, I got it all in an hour, but it doesn't leave much time for questions. So I'm gonna stop my screen share here and see what you can pepper me with. I'm willing to stay a little bit longer if it helps.
Lonny, can you see the Q&A? Do you want me to start launching them at you? I know
well,
you answered.
Yeah, let's see what's in here. Let's see, I've been looking at the chat during the meeting. So for Q&A, do we know when the groundbreaking on the Stastny Light Rail Station and where exactly the station will be located? Well, that's two questions there. So I can show you on screen where it'll be located. As for when the groundbreaking is, no, I don't have an answer on that yet. We still have to decide on the phasing for this project. So depending on where it is in the schedule will determine when the groundbreaking is for that station. But for those interested in Stastny, if you head down here, there is a water crossing here and TxDOT right of way. See where it says 275? That's when this becomes a highway. You think of it as South Congress, TxDOT thinks of it as a highway. So we're going to build a bridge here that allows us to get out of the floodplain and over to the new station. The station is very likely to be located in this general area here, this kind of keyhole shaped space with a park and ride facility and station. I would assume it'd be somewhere in this area, partly for the connection to Mockingbird, because you can see that Ramble and Mockingbird provide deep connection into the neighborhood. So my guess is that that platform itself will be somewhere located in this area with a larger park and ride facility around it. Let's see, for those who missed, we talked about the financing. And yes, anytime you take the train above grade or below grade, it gets more expensive. So we're trying to avoid doing that. There's even some folks out there who are recommending that we don't tunnel under the river, that we use the bridge, and that would change a lot. So again, tough decisions coming on that regard. Let's see, I see, so excited. There'll be traffic disruptions and traffic impacts. So I think that's an important thing for this group to know, that even if your property isn't directly impacted, like the tracks or the station aren't directly on your property. It could be that the construction's happening right in front of your business. And in that case, there might be an impact to street traffic to your business. And we're aware of that. So there will be a discussion over the course of the winter and next year talking about business support during construction. So be on the lookout for that. I will very likely be involved with that effort, and will certainly be coming to Movability members and then any businesses that are located directly on the blue or orange or green lines.
Lonny, can I just add something real quick in there about
Yeah,
that?
of course.
And I know that ATP and Movability will be working together on this. Movability is also working with several other organizations, because we know there will be, in addition to Project Connect construction, there's upcoming I-35 construction. So we are going to be working hard on helping people understand what their options are. It will be even more important to reduce that single occupancy vehicle traffic as our roadways are disrupted and changed during this process. So please follow Movability, and we will get the word out as this timeline rolls forward on how to help with that, especially if you're looking at getting your employees around.
And we'll certainly be working with businesses on a variety of ways to support them during construction. The good thing is, even though the timeline for construction is 5 years, no section is going to be under construction for that length of time. Most of it will be 6 months or less. Some of it will be 1 year or less. And so we're going to want to talk to you about the fiscal impact, but also things that we can do, such as beautification, promotion, alternative commuting for your employees, the parking behavior of the construction crew, things of that nature. So that will be coming. And again, if you don't hear it from Movability, you might hear it from the chamber or from some other news source, but be on the lookout for that. Any other questions? Because I know we covered so much in a very short time, but I hope that you'll be engaged and give us your feedback. Well, thanks, Barbara. I'm happy to do it.
Lonny, I think there was one more question that I got from members. Can you briefly touch on, and maybe there's no answer to this right now, how will bike infrastructure be affected by some of the construction, especially in the more downtown dense areas?
Well, first, we're dedicated to there being space for bikes and pedestrians, and in most cases, they are separated infrastructure. There are places where the infrastructure gets really tight, like on Riverside near Travis Heights, and we may go to shared use paths in that place. In general, our construction crews and like anything for the Red Line has included a bikeway. We've literally rebuilt a bikeway and then moved it back in place. We're dedicated to doing that same kind of work. So while I can't always say the same of the private sector, I can say it will be built into the contracts with our construction team to maintain bike and pedestrian access throughout construction.
All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, look at us wrapping it up right on time. But I'm going to echo what Lonny said. Please feel free to reach out both to ATP and to Movability with any further questions or concerns or any of that good stuff with this. It's a lot of information and it's a big process. And thank you so much, Lonny, for sharing all of this.
I'm so happy to do it. And again, feel free to reach out anytime if you've got questions or if you would like a similar discussion for your neighborhood, church, club, school, office. I am here to be exploited and I'm happy to help. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoy your day and lunch.
Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.